I wanted to bring up this story up to this point again because after yesterday we had discussed how Clips was going to drop an album and they ended up having issues with Def Jam because of a Kendrick Lamar feature. Now, if you don't know, Def Jam, their parent company is UMG. And UMG, if you know, has been going back and forth with Drake with a defamation lawsuit. This Kendrick Lamar feature that Def Jam didn't want on the album, they tried to ask Pusha T if he could censor it. He said that he wasn't going to do that, and a month later or so, or sometime later, they eventually had to drop Clips from the label. They had to drop Pusha T from the label as well. But that wasn't until he paid a certain amount of money. There's already a story circulating on the internet that Steven Victor, on the insane amount of money it took for Pusha T and Clips to exit Def Jam. Now, I believe this is because he still had a contract with Def Jam, but he had to pay almost 7 figures just to get out of this deal, just to get out from the label. And then later on, he goes to Rock Nation. But the important part of all of this currently is the feature and how it potentially could play a role in the lawsuit. You see, a lot of people are saying that because Def Jam, their parent company is UMG, it means that they had some type of tie with this decision. Pusha T being told by Def Jam to remove Kendrick Lamar was an executive decision made by the labels involving Def Jam and UMG, allegedly. But we're going to take a look and see how this would affect the lawsuit. Because if you know at this point, the lawsuit that Drake is going against with UMG is in regards to defamation. His lawyers had already made a response. They had did an argument talking about the motion to dismiss that UMG had presented to the judge. They had tried to say that the label UMG has been making Drake look bad, that there's been malice, that they've been targeting him, and, you know, trying to make Drake the victim. However, this scenario with Clips and Kendrick Lamar, the feature with Kendrick Lamar, and the attention this is getting because they tried to silence Kendrick's verse, they tried to silence Clips, goes hand in hand with the lawsuit. Now, in this article, it says that after Kendrick Lamar, who spent the part of 2024 in a venomous back and forth with Drake, and as Pusha T recently told GQ, Lamar's presence on the Clips track made Def Jam's parent company, UMG, uncomfortable. Now, this is the reason that I'm getting at here, because if we remember the lawsuit, like I said, Drake's lawyer tried to imply that UMG was working with malice, that they had malice against Drake, and they named Lucien Grange and other people from UMG. This right here was from the response from Drake's lawyer. Drake's lawyer said that the amended complaint that they had made adequately alleges actual malice. He says UMG addresses actual malice in a single paragraph that merely repackages it as opinion and hyperbole arguments. Its argument is meritless. The actual malice standard requires that the plaintiff show that the defendant made the statements at issue with knowledge that the statements were false or with reckless disregard as to the falsity. UMG argues that plaintiff must identify specific individuals at UMG that acted with actual malice. This makes sense because discovery is essential to permit plaintiff to confirm which individuals at UMG were responsible for greenlighting the recording, notwithstanding its lyrics, greenlighting the image and video, notwithstanding the offensive imagery, and deciding to continue to promote the recording, notwithstanding to no harm it was causing to Drake. In any event, the amended complaint adequately pleads plausible grounds to infer the requisite mental state of each of Lucien Grange, UMG CEO, John Janik, Interscope CEO, and Monte Littman, Republic CEO, and Avery Littman, Republic President. The amended complaint pleads that Sir Grange and Mr. Janik were involved in the initial publication of the record and image, despite knowing that the allegations were unsupported by any evidence and understanding they inherit improbability. The amended complaint further pleads that Sir Grange, Mr. Janik, Monte Littman, and Avery Littman played a key role in the initial publication of the video, either in directing or approving the publication and or failing to prevent its publication. Knowing that Drake's Toronto home was attacked, knowing that the allegations were unsupported by any evidence and were being believed by the public, and despite the inherent improbability of the allegations. These allegations, combined with other well-pleaded allegations demonstrating that UMG knew the defamatory statements were false, pled plausible grounds to infer actual malice on the part of UMG. So they're basically saying that UMG was working with actual malice. They're trying to blame Lucien Grange, John Janik, Monte Littman, and Avery Littman. And they're saying that they did this, they published the record, not like us, because they wanted to defame Drake, they wanted to harm Drake, and that they were working with actual malice against him. However, one thing that I do want to point out, Pusha T is now saying that Def Jam's parent company, Universal Music Group, is starting to feel uncomfortable with seeing him on a record with Kendrick Lamar. They do not want to see Pusha T and Kendrick Lamar on a record together because they think that it's going to be bad or look bad when it comes to Drake. And they don't want that to be an issue. In a way, you could say that UMG is protecting Drake because of this. And because of that, it also affects his lawsuit. But the scenario with Pusha T and them trying to block the feature with Kendrick Lamar, it undermines the idea that UMG acted with malice against Drake. In fact, UMG's actions suggest that the opposite had happened. They are trying to protect him, not expose him to more damage. That weakens any claim that they were part of any malicious campaign. Now, legally, the word malice is defined as the false statements were made knowingly or with reckless disregard for the truth. And in some cases, they were made with malice, in example, intent to harm. What Drake's lawyers might be arguing is that people in the industry, possibly including label insiders such as Lucien Grange and others from UMG, knowingly allowed or encouraged damaging narratives. This amounts to malice because they failed to stop it or even help fuel it. This is what Drake's lawyer is claiming, allegedly. However, this is the problem. If UMG had stepped in and tried to block or discourage Kendrick's verse because they felt it would worsen things for Drake, then that suggests that UMG is actively working to protect Drake and not harm him. They're avoiding actions that could escalate the situation or increase legal exposure. They are not acting with malice, they're acting out of caution. In hindsight, it backfires Drake's argument. You can't accuse your label or its affiliates of acting maliciously against you while they're taking actions that clearly show they're trying to shield you. In a courtroom or even public opinion, this kind of contradiction can weaken Drake's defamation claims, make him seem overly paranoid as well, and show that he's being protected by the very people he's accusing of harming him. That means they likely weren't part of any malicious campaign, and Drake's legal team might be stretching the malice claim beyond what the facts support. And it's only because UMG decided to intervene with this Kendrick Lamar feature, because they're the parent company of Def Jam, and Def Jam is trying to get this verse scrapped or censored. In hindsight, it's only to protect Drake. I feel like it's the reason why they're going to beat this case. I still think that UMG looks at Drake as the golden goose. They still look at him as the golden boy. They know that they could still make money off of Drake. And them taking these actions via Def Jam, their son company, it's almost as if they're not wanting to risk any more damages that could go Drake's way. It shows that Drake is still somebody being pushed by the machine. It shows that the machine, which is UMG, still has Drake's back. And they're going to try to do everything that they can regardless to try to keep Drake's image still intact, despite arguing with him in court. So I think this is going to be interesting. I think the way that this lawsuit moves forward, I think this right here, what they did for Drake, I wonder if they will bring this up in court. I wonder if UMG is going to openly say that they've tried to protect Drake, even in an example like this. I'm only curious to know, but I know for a fact that Def Jam, UMG, interfering with this song right here could be enough proof that they never had any malicious intent towards Drake. And that's the whole reason why people keep saying that this is about Drake, because Drake is the reason why they didn't want Pusha T and Kendrick Lamar on the song together, because they knew how it would look and they didn't want to risk that. And they still wanted to protect Drake at the end of the day. But y'all can tell me how you feel about this. At the end of the day, they tried to block this song because they wanted to appease Drake. They wanted to please Drake and make sure that he wasn't going to get offended if this song came out. I'm glad that Roc Nation took control. It sucks that Pusha T had to pay 7 figures to get out of his contract, but I'm glad that we're going to get this song uncensored and we're going to get this whole album in its entirety. You cannot stop real hip hop. Shout out to Kendrick Lamar. Shout out Clipse, Pusha T, Roc Nation for getting this album out. Hopefully we could listen to this in the summer, and make sure y'all listen to this album, bro, because it took about 7 figures just for him to get out the label. So y'all run the numbers up whenever it comes out. Go ahead and listen to Ace Trumpets right now. Fire song, by the way. I love the song, man. I love the whole Wi-Fi. Bro, it's funny. But yeah, y'all tell me how you feel about this and get back to me, man. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see y'all in the next video, man. Peace. Keep it a legend.